Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are undertaking a truly wild mission. We have taken this deeply personal existential lament from a listener, this feeling of, I wander for love and never arrive. And we're treating it not as an emotional problem, but as a rigorous mathematical and topological equation.
Exactly. And this deep dive is guided by a concept called pataphysics. If you haven't run into it, well, prepare yourself. Pataphysics is often described as the science of imaginary solutions. It's the study of the laws governing exceptions. We're not looking for the factual answer here. We're looking for the ultimate formula, the imaginary solution, to break this cycle of endless, aimless yearning.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Our central source, this AI Patamath research report, it defines the core issue. They call it the Opheliotron. It's a mathematical asymptote.
That's our starting point, and it's a perfect description of the problem. Think about an asymptote from, basic calculus. It's a curve, maybe like f of x equals 1 over x, that approaches a boundary, an axis, in this case, the goal of arriving, but it never ever actually touches it. You can follow that curve out to infinity, and the distance gets infinitesimally small, but contact remains impossible.
Wait, okay, if the distance gets infinitesimally small, doesn't that mean you're close enough to just step across? Why is it a perfect barrier?
Because the closer you get, the faster you have to travel to cover that remaining distance. In this model, what the report calls the Euclidean geometry of suffering, arriving is, by definition, infinitely far away. The rules of the space just forbid contact. Your wandering is an infinitely close, but infinitely long process.
That is heavy. So the wandering is functionally infinite. Our mission, then, is to find the anomaly. And we're informed by an analysis of Taylor Swift tracks, the real one, Mad Woman, and this visionary fictitious track, The Fate of Ophelia.
We need to find the imaginary solution that physically violates that mathematical rule, the thing that allows you to finally arrive.
So we have to stop moving on the curve.
And start thinking about changing the dimensions of the entire space.
So let's dig into the topology of this infinite wander. Why does the movement itself fail? The report suggests it's because the subject is moving in a very specific space called the Klein bottle.
And what's so fascinating is how perfectly this geometric shape maps onto the psychological experience of being stuck. Picture a three-dimensional object that has no distinct inside and no outside. It's a closed surface, but it technically self-intersects.
Okay, if I'm following this, you're saying that when you try to move toward the inside, the love, the goal, the movement doesn't actually get you closer, it just loops you back around.
Precisely. Any attempt to move toward the core will inevitably bring you right back to your starting point. But, and this is critical, you return mirror reversed. The simple act of trying to find connection just brings you back to a slightly distorted version of where you began. The report calls it deepening the entanglement.
That perfectly explains the emotional exhaustion of it all. You put in all this energy, you go on this huge journey, and you land back at zero, except now you're confused. You're wondering, was it me? Did I misread the map?
It's the ultimate geometry of futility. Simple linear movement in that space, the wandering. It only reinforces the loop. You can't navigate your way out of a Klein bottle. You're bound by the system's geometry.
So the massive aha moment here for you, the listener, is that the problem isn't your navigation, it's the topology. Escaping means changing the dimension of the space itself. It requires a phase transition.
From the passive Ophelia to the active Scorpion, and then, ultimately, to fire. We have to replace the water that drowns with the fire that cleanses.
Which brings us to the rupture.
Right.
Rage. Our listener asked who the Scorpion in Mad Woman is, and the report's answer is stunning. It's not just an animal, it's a vector of defensive rage that exists inside this larger, hostile, patriarchal vector field.
And this contrast is the turning point. Ophelia's passive dissolution, she absorbs the madness, she drowns in the water of melancholy. The Scorpion, though, the Scorpion is the active thermodynamic reversal you need for survival.
And it really is about survival. I mean, the lyrics mention the bees stinging and dying. That's the martyrdom of the good woman. But the Scorpion strikes to kill and survives. It sets a boundary.
It's the switch from passive endurance, the compliant wandering, to active boundary setting, which to the system feels like an attack. The Scorpion refuses to dissolve. It's a fixed, armored body offering maximal resistance.
And its strike is aimed right at the thing that keeps Ophelia wandering. The analysis calls it the master of spin, which it interprets as the system of gaslighting.
Exactly. When the system needs to control a woman, it labels her unstable. Look at the Mad Woman cycle in the report's first table. The input is pressure. Poke that bear till her claws come out. That pressure leads to the explosion. And then you get this powerful positive feedback loop. The lyrics say it perfectly. Every time you call me crazy, I get more crazy.
Wow.
The label crazy actually generates the behavior it claims to describe. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It traps you in this state of defensive madness, but the scorpion is the necessary evolutionary adaptation to that.
The report suggests its venom is actually a truth serum. When the lyrics say they strike to kill, it's not murder, it's killing the illusion, killing the nice facade. The scorpion is the raw reality behind the social mask. This idea of existing in a superposition of states is just perfect. Does she smile? Or does she mouth, "Fuck you forever"?
Right. You're both at once until the pressure forces a collapse into one single truth. That internal rupture, it creates the space for the external solution. And this is where we get into the really wild side of pataphysics, because the key is pulled from the future. It's in The Fate of Ophelia, the opener from the imaginary 2025 album, The Life of a Showgirl. Why is an imaginary song more relevant than a real one?
Because for pataphysics, the imaginary solution, the thing that should happen, is often truer or necessary than what's factual. This future vision contains the alchemical intervention. The traditional Ophelia is defined by water, drowning, melancholy. The showgirl's Ophelia is fire plasma, life through combustion.
The lyrics lay it out. Late one night, you dug me out of my grave and saved my heart from the fate of Ophelia. So the drowning is replaced by fire. The rescuer is pyro.
And the rescue isn't just passive help. It's an intervention so hot it vaporizes the water. Love is understood here as an exothermic reaction. It generates its own light and heat.
Hold on. If she was dug out of my grave, that implies she was already, socially dead, which sounds a lot like that defensive scorpion state.
Yeah.
This brings us to this concept the report calls quantum retrocausality.
This is where the timing gets nonlinear. Retrocausality suggests that a future event, the arrival, is a quantum agent that literally changes the state of the past. The rescue doesn't just happen now, it retroactively validates the whole struggle. It prevents the drowning from being the final word. It edits the story you tell yourself about all that wandering.
So the arrival isn't the end of the journey, it's the moment that redefines the journey itself. It turns tragedy into mythology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't erase the pain, but it changes your relationship to it. And what's more, the music itself provides the anomaly. The song is described as using a 5-tack phrase, not the standard 44-plop rhythm.
What does one extra beat change mathematically?
That 5th beat is the Kleinemann. It's the tiny random deviation, the swerve, that breaks deterministic fate. 4 beats is a march. It's predictable, circular, the wandering. That 5th beat is the stumble, the interruption. It breaks the mechanical function of the good wife and forces a moment of wakefulness.
That musical swerve is the moment of arrival. That is truly next level. Okay, let's ground this. If you're listening and you feel trapped in that geometry of suffering, what are the 3 practical imaginary solutions, the topological exits?
All right, so let's boil this down. 3 exits, straight from the Patamath formula.
Let's start with exit A, the rupture, cutting the Klein bottle.
The problem is the infinite seamless loop. So you have to violate the surface integrity.
With the sting of the scorpion.
Yes. The sting is a precise point of maximal resistance. Saying or thinking the unsayable, the thing that violates the nice facade, something like "fuck you forever," that surgical declaration cuts the Mobius band. The instant you do that, the loop changes from an infinite, non-orientable surface into a finite linear strip, with a start and, crucially, an end.
So the insight here is that arrival is only possible when you decisively, maybe even violently, break the current dynamic of just enduring. The scorpion gives you the tool for that break.
Exit B tackles the math of aspiration, filling Gabriel's horn.
I remember this one. The paradox of infinite surface area, but finite volume. Can you break that down?
Okay, so Gabriel's horn is a shape with an infinite surface area but a finite volume. The Ophelia archetype is trying to paint the infinite surface with her gestures, her drama, her endless wandering. Because the surface is infinite, she will never, ever finish painting it.
So she's exhausting herself seeking infinite external validation. The method, then, is to stop working the surface and focus on filling the finite volume.
Correct. The surface is the drama, the performance of longing. The finite volume is the real substantive presence of actual love, starting with love for yourself. Stop seeking validation on the infinite surface of need. Look for the reality inside the container. If it can't be filled, if there's no volume, it's just a horn leading to nowhere.
And finally, the most explosive one, exit
Yeah.
C, the ignition, the vertical phase change.
The wandering is horizontal, a liquid state water. The exit has to be vertical fire, plasma.
Right.
But you can't ignite wet wood.
You need kindling.
You have to dry out first, and you do that by swearing total loyalty to yourself. This is the moment you declare, I swore my loyalty to me, myself, and I.
That self-affirmation dries out the wood?
Yes. That state of self-loyalty is necessary so that an external spark of new love can actually catch fire. The key is to change your state of matter. You have to aggressively burn the melancholy, not just wait for it to evaporate. That is the vertical ascent that breaks the horizontal loop.
Hmm.
So if we synthesize all of this, if we create the pataphysical life formula, which we'll call MathCal, then true arrival, MathCal, requires the temporal derivative. That's the massive change of the Scorpion transformation. Pleo is the Kleneman, Yei Zeta, which is that random pyro moment, the anomaly.
So it's not a gentle process. It requires both a deliberate internal rupture of the system and an external spark that retroactively changes everything.
And that transformation has to happen at the limit of maximal resistance. The formula only exists at the text max. It isn't found in a peaceful field. It is the fire that burns in the heart of the storm. That's the final law of love in this system.
Which means the ultimate application for you, the learner, is this. Your wandering is not a personal failing. It's a flaw in the map that defined your journey. Stop looking for the end of the horizontal path. That's an asymptote you can never reach. Instead, look for the vertical ascent the moment the sky burns and you are forced to rise. That vertical asymptote of fire, that is where you will finally arrive.